know, looking back, I won't say it was time wasted, but I want to see a change in this world. I want to see us change so badly. Alright, so very firstly I just want to go over my journey. So my journey starting kind of after and during high school. So that's around the time I started thinking about, you know, what I wanted to do with my life. So my father owned a graphics business, so during that time I was in a relationship with someone, and my idea in my head was I will stay around the area that I live in, I will go to community college and major in graphic design, and I will work for my father's business. I took the easy way out. I had no passions. I was never really into school. Even when I started school for graphic design, I wasn't passionate about it. I liked that it was something that brought me and my father closer together because we weren't very close, but it was something that really bonded us. I mean, we all look up to our parents and we all want to somewhat follow in our parents' footsteps. So I took that route and I went to school for graphic design. Now, while I was in school for graphic design, that is around the time that I started getting into drugs. The drugs got pretty serious. I ended up dropping out of school because I couldn't handle it and I was failing out of all my classes. So I dropped out of school, I lost my job, I went through that whole spiel, and then I ended up going to rehab twice and kind of got my act together and came back and was working for my father, and I was also working as a waitress. And that was around the time that I found fitness and health. So I got really into fitness and health, and during that time I developed an eating disorder and was still drinking pretty heavily. So then my next step was I thought, oh, well, I'm into fitness and nutrition, dieting and restricting and working out heavy at the gym. I should be a dietitian or a nutritionist. So I went back to school and majored in dietetics and nutrition. Now during that time, that's when I discovered plant-based veganism and started healing my mental health, and that was when my world shifted entirely. So I found plant-based veganism, and I was still in school for nutrition and dietetics. And I would go to class, and I would get done class, and I would sit in my car and cry because I thought, I don't believe in what they're teaching me here. I don't think that the promotion of eating meat and dairy every day is right. You know, my teachers were overweight and unhealthy. A lot of the people in my class were unhealthy, and I'm like, what is this? Like, I can't understand how we're all sitting here acting like, you know, this is the answer, and it's not. So anyways, down the line, what ended up happening was I discontinued going to school for dietetics and nutrition after the 4th semester, I think it was. So after my 4th semester, was it 3rd or 4th? Either 3rd or 4th semester, I ended up pursuing more in depth my education on plant-based veganism. So I dove into learning all the ins and outs of the lifestyle, and that was when, about a year after that, I started my own business. So that kind of is how I found my passion. So I was kind of all over the place, and then from there I ended up slowly transitioning out of working for my father and working for the business that I worked for as a waitress. So that's kind of how I dove into this. Now, on to sort of what society has put on us. In high school, I did not know myself at all, first off. I don't think anybody really knows himself in high school. In high school, you're hyper-focused on friends, on grades if you're into your schooling. You're not focused on who you are internally, intimately, as a person, and what your passions are, and where your heart is, and things like that. You're very focused on other things during that time. So I think it's cruel, and I think it's harmful to, at such a young age, and even starting in grade school and kindergarten, starting in preschool, you are determined, and you are determined by your grades. If you get good grades, you're smart, you're going to make it far in life, things like that, which is really, really harmful, I think, to you know, who we are as people. You know, if you aren't good at school, then you're probably not going to amount to much. And overall, during all of our schooling, we're never really taught anything about mental health or self-love or anything surrounding those things. So I think that's really, really detrimental as well. So overall, you're judged basically by your grades in school, and you're not really taught how to check in with yourself, even on a basic level. We're really not taught much of anything on that level. So I think that's super, super harmful and just really unfair. So then around your freshman, sophomore, junior years in high school, when you're a teenager, when you're a crazy teenager who's doing God knows what majority of the time. I mean, majority teenagers are just like, whatever, you know, they're in relationships and they're into going to parties and hanging out with friends and not focused on the deeper things in life. You're still living with your parents. You don't really know how to do much. You're taken care of, and for the most part, the majority at least. So then all of a sudden it's like, oh hey, and by the way, you need to pick out what you want to do for the rest of your life and pick a college and figure out how you're going to pay for it. So can you do that now? And all of a sudden we're like, excuse me? And this big pressure is immediately put on you, and you're like, well, here we go. And that's kind of how I felt a little bit, but I was very wrapped up in a relationship and I was very wrapped up in other things, so I just kind of went the I don't care route, and I took the easy route, and I said I'm just gonna go to school for graphic design, like I said. So I think it's really unfair that that's the path that you have to choose, because most of the time what happens is you do go through school, you spend a lot of money, and I'm not saying that school is not important. I think it's great, and I think it's a good tactic, and it depends on your skills that you personally have, and some people are super book smart, science smart, math smart, all of that, and I love it and I admire it. But I think that it's very unfair that right from the age of 16 to 18, you're all of a sudden put into this throw of choose what you want to do for the rest of your life right now and spend ungodly amounts of money on it right now. You have to, or else, you know, you're not going to be successful. Then usually what I think ends up happening is people do go to school, and you're on your own for the first time, so you do a lot of partying, you do a lot of things that you didn't have that freedom before, and now you have this new freedom and you're living on your own. So it's a lot to put on someone who doesn't and hasn't lived by themselves, with themselves, taking care of themselves. So I think it's again just very unfair. It's just this huge pressure, and you still have yet to learn anything about yourself because you're so hyper focused on friends, parties, classes, getting good grades. Do I want to do this? What is life? I have to pay bills now. I need more money. I have no, all of the struggles that come along with that. So I really do think overall in general, it's just super unfair. I don't think it's fair to throw us young adults into something like that at such a young age. So what I want to see in the world, what I want to see the world doing for young people, starting when you start school, whatever type of school that you go to, what I want to see in parents and in the schools is mental health being started, and mental health work, and getting to know yourself, and self-love and motivation and spirituality and things like that starting at a younger age, so that children can get to know themselves on a deeper level at a younger age. Because basically you do go to kindergarten and you learn manners and things like that, and they're very important, and you're learning colors and the ABCs. But in my mind, I would rather my child be confident in themselves and who they are, and start to get to know their mental health and their feelings, rather than knowing the ABCs. I would rather my child feel confident in that part than be book smart, because I do think that mental health and happiness and feelings are the basis of everything in your entire life, and that's from experience. Ignoring your mental health and focusing on book smarts and things like that, it's not okay, and it should be both the parents' responsibility and the school's responsibility, because that's where your child is spending most of their time, with their parents at home and at school. So if we don't dive in deep at a very young age, they're never going to think it's important, and they're always going to put the importance on what we think is important. So if you tell your children that getting A's on everything is important, that's what they're going to live their lives thinking is important, and they're going to put aside food and mental health and fitness and relationships and self-love and all of these things. So I think, making sure that we do that is super, super important. I would also really love to see grades disappearing. I do think that we need to critique work, and we need to work on certain things, and I understand that, but this comparison, this numbers thing just agitates me with everything. I don't like numbers being put on anything. I don't like, you know, in the fitness side of things, I've never liked, you know, having to weigh yourself, calorie counting, meal times, portions. I don't like that, and I don't like grades. I don't think that it's beneficial to put a number or a grade on someone and tell them, like, okay, you did good if you get an A, but you did really bad if you got an F or something like that. I think that we are each so individual that it's so unfair to put a one-size-fits-all grade on every subject in school, because again, like I said, we are so individual and we have so many individual talents, and we each are stimulated by different things. Another thing that I would really love to see is after high school, not this obligation to go to college. If you want to go to college, okay, I am all for it. I'm all for school again. I'm not for going to college. I think that college is wonderful. But I would really love to see like a 5-year period after high school where we work hard at, you know, whatever kind of jobs, because these jobs are needed and they need to be filled, you know, like serving and different things like that, and babysitting and all these things. I wish that those were filled by young adults who are ages like 18 to 25. And during that time, those 18 to 25-year-olds aren't focusing on school, they're focusing on themselves, finding their paths in their careers, maybe volunteering, that could be a huge part of it, traveling, a very huge part of it. I think after you get done high school, you should spend your time in the world, seeing what you're good at and seeing what you have to offer in the world and what clicks with you, because if you grow up living in the same town, going to the same schools with the same people, doing the same things, and you don't really experience things, you don't see the world, you don't meet new, interesting, crazy people. And I think at that age, ages 18 to 25, or around that age, I think it's so important for you to get out and meet people. I mean, I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have known what was out there in the world for me. And I didn't, because it wasn't a thing. You didn't do that. You went to college. You had to go to college. You had to get that degree so you could start your job, so you could make money, so you could buy a house, so blah, blah, blah. And to me now that seems really ridiculous, because I missed out on so much. So during that time, I think of working and exploring the world, I also think you should start saving up your money. This way, like I've said this before, but I hate that money is important, but it is important. So rather than being the broke college student, you could work your ass off, explore the world, save your money, budget, learn how to do all these things. And during that time, you know, it would be a well-known thing that you saved money. So by the end of those 5 or so years, you had a lot of money saved, and you could decide, like, do I want to go to college? Do I want to do this? Do I want to become a plant-based health coach? Do I want to run a small business? Do I want to anything? There's so much more out there that we could eliminate so much of the mental health issues going on if we just gave ourselves a chance to feel better instead of to fit into this mold. So I hope whenever I do have children that I can be that for them. I want to be there for them, support them, and make them understand that they don't have to do what I did, basically. They don't have to feel foolish for not getting the best grades in school, whether they're homeschooled or they go to school or whatever it is. They don't have to feel foolish if they're not the best at history class or whatever it is. There will never be a pressure for them to choose a career and choose a college and get the best grades to get into the best college. It will be all based around love and compassion and finding your passions and giving them time to really feel things out and get to know themselves before they choose this, you know, lifetime career. And I also want to instill in them that it's never too late. I've learned this from my mother. My mother went back to school when she was 50 years old. Maybe she was 45. Somewhere around there, 45, 50, and now she has her absolute dream job. She is a nurse, a hospice nurse. She helps people transition and pass through into their next life. How amazing is that? And I think that, you know, looking back, I won't say it was time wasted, but I want to see a change in this world. I want to see us change so badly and pay so much more attention to our mental health. Because we don't. We pay no mind to our mental health. Everyone ignores it, or is given a suppressant for it. We don't give ourselves a chance to get to know ourselves, feel it out, and work on it. And I think that that's really important. So I really, really would love to see that in the world someday, and hopefully, you know, within the next 50 years we have a huge shift in mental health and in physical health, and, you know, on all sides of the spectrum, because it's something that I think is detrimental. The you know, drug abuse, the mental health abuse, the relationship abuse that goes on these days is intensifying. It's getting worse. It's getting crazier. You hear crazier stories on the news. We don't even watch the news anymore because it literally makes me... Let me know how you're feeling about this subject. I want to hear your opinions. You can leave your comments down below and let me know just how you're feeling about this. How do you feel about what I just said to you? How do you feel about, you know, everything going on in the world? I'd love to hear it.